Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you all so much for joining us today for our Texas House District candidate forum for District 77 for specifically public education and workforce. So my name is John Perez. I'm the Regional Advocacy Director for Raise Your Hand Texas. And my region goes from El Paso to just short of San Antonio. And it's been really an honor to serve West Texas and enhance public education advocacy, but also community resilience and overall awareness about the issues that our leaders face in Austin, trying to better represent the El Paso region. So we're not just here to facilitate this really crucial dialogue between the candidates that want to represent you, the constituents as El Pasoans, but to ensure that the future of this specific district, District 77's leadership, aligns with the values and priorities of public education, excellence, and of course, equity and access through a high-performing public education system, but also a highly qualified workforce, one that promotes innovation and one that really looks after this beautiful binational community. So I'm thrilled to announce that this event was really brought to life by 3 organizations. One, Raise Your Hand Texas, yours truly, the El Paso Chamber, through leadership of Nicole, and of course Andrea, the CEO and president of the Chamber, and also Maya Sanchez, the CEO of Progress 321, as well as Gabe Gonzalez, the president of the board for Progress 321. These are 2 amazing organizations that I'm ecstatic to be a partner and member of that really, really align well with our overall mission, which is of course promoting our civic duty and why we're actually here. So as we proceed, I really encourage y'all to listen actively and really lean in wholeheartedly on what their positions are. I want to thank our candidates for running for office to begin with. It takes a lot just to run. I'm genuinely touched at what almost the audacity to try to seek this leadership, but all of y'all have served, all of y'all have been advocates for the community, and I hope that y'all proceed to do it, no matter what the results of this primary and of course the ongoing general election are. So on that note, I won't monopolize your time. There's going to be a lot of dialogue to get on with. I want to hand over the floor to the CEO and president of the El Paso Chamber, who has taken the helm of this organization to really steer it in an amazing direction. So, Ms. Annello.
Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We are going to give each of our candidates 2 minutes to tell you a little bit about themselves, so I will hold off on introducing them. But do just want to let you know we do have a couple of ground rules. So we have our lovely timekeeper up here in the front, Ms. Maya Sanchez. So she's going to be helping me keep time so that we can make sure that we stay on the agenda this evening. So we have about 40 minutes for questions that we have prepared. If we get finished at that point, there may be an opportunity for questions from the audience. But if we run out of time, we would ask that you just provide us with questions and we will get those to the candidates offline. So, all right, that being said, we're just going to go down the line. So Homer Reza, if you would start off and tell us a little bit about yourself in 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. My name is Homer Reza. I'm 73 years old. I am presently married to my high school sweetheart. Last year, we celebrated 50 years of marriage. She said right over here. I come to you from the business side, but not the political side. I'm the only one that comes to you from that side. But I do come to you with a lot of experience, especially with the fact that I worked with IBM for 16 years. I worked with Eastman Kodak for 6 years, and now I'm an independent insurance agent for 14 years. So I have a lot of experience and a lot of qualities. Some of those qualities have to do with the fact that I bring to the table effective communications, negotiation skills, and a deep understanding of understanding the needs of our community. And with those traits, I think that I am well qualified to be a strong voice, a strong advocate for this District of 77 as your state representative.
Thank you so much, sir. All right, moving on now to Alex Annello.
Hi everybody, good evening. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you to Razor from Texas and John and the Chamber. It is a real honor to be up here with these four other great individuals. You all know me, I served on City Council for 7 years as the District 2 representative and the Mayor Pro Tem. During that time, I was an advocate for our community members as well as economic development. You know, we're losing a real history of institutional knowledge with Lena Ortega, and I think it's really important that we have a progressive Democrat running in this seat who's going to fight for this community. While in City Council, I have been an advocate, as I said, for economic development, education, women's rights, immigrant community members, and it would be an honor to be able to serve for you all in the State House as your HD 77 representative.
Thank you so much. Man, you guys are going speedy. All right, Ms. Norma Chavez.
Thank you. First of all, to Mr. Perez, raise your hand, El Paso Chamber of Commerce and El Paso Matters for putting this forum together. My name is Norma Chavez. I was born and raised in El Paso. I'm a second generation El Pasoan. Both sets of my grandparents are 1910 Mexican Revolution immigrants. Both the Salazar and Chavez family started their lives in Segundo Barrio, and both my mom and dad attended Bowie High School. I'm a product of the El Paso Independent School District. I attended Hillside Elementary, Ross, now Coach Wally Hartley, and graduated from Burgess High. I'm running for state representative because District 77 has a very unique opportunity to elect a member of the Texas House of Representatives with seniority, and seniority matters in this race. I will return as an 8-term member and will be in the top 30 out of 150 House of Representatives, depending on the 2024 primaries. I have the legislative experience, institutional knowledge, and capacity to impact and utilize my seniority to the fullest for El Paso and House District 77. People want legislators to work for the good of Texas, and I know how, and I have been criticized for crossing the aisle to work with Republicans on issues. But the reality is, the House, the Senate, and also the governor's mansion, it is all Republican, and so we have to do what we need to do to work with not just others, but to work and cross the aisle for El Paso and for Texas. I will use my legislative skills, my grassroots organizing tools to build important relationships for El Paso. I have a degree from the University of Texas at Austin in government with a minor in business, and I would be honored to represent HD 77 and return back to use my seniority for the good of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chavez. Okay, and last we have Ms. Perez.
Well, good evening. Thanks to everybody for being here. Thank you to the organizers, Razor and Texas, the Chamber of Commerce, and Progress 321 for organizing today's event. It's great to talk about the issues. It's super important, especially when it comes to education. My name is Vince Perez. I'm the former county commissioner for El Paso County. I served as county commissioner from 2013 to 2020 for Precinct 3, which included not only the city of El Paso, but all the territories outside the city limits east of Blue 375. It was a tremendous privilege to serve in that capacity. Prior to my time as commissioner, I served as a congressional staffer in Washington, D.C., where I was there from 2007 to 2011. It was a tremendous privilege to work with people of El Paso there. I'm a proud graduate of public schools. I graduated from Bellevue High School, Branchland Middle, and Statewide Elementary School. I'm a product of this community. I had the privilege of attending Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., where I got my undergraduate and graduate degrees in government. I've been in public service my entire life. I started studying public policy actually at the age of 18 when I was given an internship here at El Paso. And one reason I wanted to come back to serve my community was because, at the time, our community was going through a very difficult period. From 2003 to about 2013, We often forget this now, but 32 public officials were arrested for public corruption, bribery, and fraud in some form or fashion. And I felt our community was poorly served by these elected leaders. And so I ran for office to give it a shot. I ran for county commissioner. I was challenged by a former state representative who Texas Monthly named one of the worst representatives in the legislature. He was in the legislature to come back to El Paso. And my predecessor was actually arrested for drug trafficking. So it was a privilege to serve in that capacity and connected with the residents. And I look forward to talking about the issues here on education.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we get into the meat of things, I do just want to make sure that we lay a few ground rules. So a few things that I'm going to share for both the candidates and then also for audience members. You know, one of the things that we have consistently been able to do at the Chamber, and certainly with our partners, is to be able to host these forums where we have been able to allow the community to engage in civil environments with mutual respect and understanding. So for the candidates, please respond directly to the content matter in the question posed. Direct your answers only to the moderator and attendees, and do not engage your fellow candidates. If a moderator does not feel you have clearly responded to the question, I may be able to answer or ask you a follow-up. Refrain from referencing other candidates' past statements or voting records. We want you to use your time to allow those present to learn more about you and not your take on your opponent. Do not interrupt your fellow candidates when they are responding to a question. Keep to the stated time limits for responses and respect the timekeeper's requests. She looks awfully aggressive over here. Yes. You will have 2 minutes for opening remarks and 90 seconds to answer each question. There is a 30-second and 10-second sign, as you can tell, and I will have to cut you off if you go over, so sorry. Okay, for the audience members, maintain an atmosphere of respect. Please refrain from applauding, unless I make a really funny joke, or any other expression of approval, disapproval during the question and answer period. We will show our appreciation to the candidates at the conclusion of this evening. Do not attempt to distribute campaign materials anywhere other than at designated campaign material tables. All right, with that said, we have got 4 education-related questions and 5 that are more workforce and business-related. So a little bit of background before we ask you this question. The 88th regular legislative session and the additional 4 special sessions elevated numerous education policy issues at our Texas Capitol. These included teacher pay, inflationary pressures, the $1.9 billion special education funding shortfall, and rethinking our assessment and accountability systems, and of course, the school choice or voucher debate. Unfortunately, all of these major policy issues ended up stalling and are on hold until either a 5th called special session sometime in 2024 or the next regular session in 2025. Texas entered the 2023 legislative sessions with historic budget surpluses. Over $33 billion was available coming into the regular session. And after funding $18 billion for property tax relief, the state still has $18 billion remaining after updated budget estimates. In addition, the legislature set aside $4 billion, these are all with a B, in state budget for school funding and $500 million for vouchers that will remain untouched until legislation is passed by both chambers. So, the first question is, House Bill 1 by Chairman Buckley during the 4th called special session was one of the House landmark votes on school issues. The bill contained $7.5 billion for school funding, including funds for a $2,000 to $4,000 teacher pay raise. The bill also contained a voucher provision. This voucher provision was stripped by a vote of 84 to 63, and the bill was ultimately withdrawn. What is the path forward for providing public schools and teachers with additional funding? And Vince, we'll start with you.
Okay. Well, first, I think it's very critical that we untie this voucher proposal to the public school finance system. Vouchers are just a bad deal for El Paso, they're a bad deal for Texas. Not only do they siphon off funding from our public schools, we just don't have the private school infrastructure here in El Paso that they do in other parts of Texas. So our kids really wouldn't have any school choice. The other thing we have to put in perspective is that 52% of kids who are in public schools in Texas are Latino. Latino kids make up the majority of Texas student population. I personally think that there is a hint of racism when it comes to this voucher policy. I do not think that the vouchers would help low-income Hispanic kids here in Texas, so we need to untie them. We also need to significantly increase the student allotment per student, the basic allotment for students here in education. Right now, the state kicks in $6,500. We need to increase that to $7,500. What that would do is it would increase funding about $14 billion on an annual basis, and it would stop this one-time funding every time the legislature has surplus funding. I believe that 40 to 50% of that $14 billion should be used to increase teacher pay. What the 40% will do is that it'll fund teacher salaries by $5,000 over the course of the biennium, $2,500 a year. Those are some of the main priorities that we need to tackle as we talk about education funding.
Thank you very much. Norma, we'll go to you.
Thank you. Thank you. First, I oppose school vouchers that take away funding from public schools. The $500 million that was set aside for school vouchers should go back to public schools. Legislators need to put the absolute best Democrats and best Republicans on a public school finance interim committee, lock them up and just leave them there until they come up with a solution for public schools. But instead, there were 84-63, and in that 84 were some Republicans who were primaried. They were primaried simply because they voted for vouchers. So we don't know what's going to happen if the governor is going to win those races, but it does impact on how we address this issue. To separate school vouchers, that's not going to happen at this time. It's just not. We've witnessed what happened in the New York election of Congressman Tom Suozzi, which happened the day after yesterday, and people want solution-driven Democrats. They want people to get over this partisan attacks that we're doing. And teachers did not get a $2,000 to $4,000 pay raise. They did not. The voucher program itself would have given families between $8,000 and $10,000 for public or private school education, depending on the proposals. Democrats and rural Republicans were worried that the program was unsustainable and harmful to public education. So they came together to block it. And so I really believe that. My time is up.
Thank you so much. All right, Alex.
Sorry, I haven't been looking at you. I'll start looking at you. Thank you.
You're going to have to undo your microphone. Okay.
Thank you so much for the question, Andrea. Yeah, I absolutely believe that both voucher and charter school funding from the state is immoral to these communities. I believe that the state of Texas has completely gutted the education system and is now turning around and saying that the only answer is a school choice, to give vouchers to parents to send their schools to private school, and we know that that's not the truth. Private schools are not required to provide special ed training or special ed courses. They are not required to provide ESL, which we know is extremely important to educate children in this community. The answer to fixing the education problem in the state is increasing the allotment. Increasing teacher pay, increasing special ed pay, also mental health. Right? We created a CIT program in our public school systems. There's a video that we share often where people get really upset with the teacher for not understanding how to handle a mental health situation. That's not their job. Teachers have become mental health providers, they've become librarians, they've had to become tech support during the pandemic. We need to be funding our schools and our teachers adequately. You mentioned that the state of Texas had a surplus, and teachers were the only state employees who did not get a raise. We need to be balancing our budget to inflation, especially in our schools, to create a system of education that is successful for not only our educators, but also our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Homer?
Thank you so much for that question again. Seems like I forgot my notes here. Everybody seems to have notes except me here. But anyway, I do believe that we need to continue to move forward with trying to get the public education funded adequately. I know that the funds for schools need to include the teacher raises. It's very important for that, because the fact is that the Texas Constitution says that we must provide an effective, efficient public school education system. It does not say that we need to fund private schools. So all the funds that we need to get, and right now the schools are way underfunded, need to go to public education. Now, it is true that probably the fact that the vouchers are still part of that, we need to partner with our Republican friends, rural Republican friends, who also see the need of having public education in front. Because the things that we need to do for our district, especially District 77, where quality education has to go to every single child, that's what we need. We just need to continue to move forward with public education being adequately funded, and forget about the private vouchers for private schools.
Thank you so much. All right. So Norma, this next question is going to go to you first. So for background, prior to the last session, Governor Abbott asked the Texas Education Agency to establish a teacher vacancy task force. Texas has almost 400,000 teachers in the state. In the most recent Charles Budd Texas Teachers Statewide poll, 75% of the teachers said that they were considering leaving the profession, a 20% increase from just 3 years ago. One of the top priorities for the next legislative session should be how our schools attract, retain, and train our Texas teacher workforce. The question is, what do you think is the largest obstacle for schools in attracting and retaining our teachers? And also, as a second piece, what can be done at the state level to fix some of these pressing issues?
Okay, first of all, 75% of teachers want to leave in the profession should be alarming to all of us. Any employee in any industry wants a safe workplace, fair and competitive pay, and to be treated with respect as professionals. But teachers need to be allowed to teach in the classroom and not teach to a test. We are taking away critical thinking skills and forcing students to learn how to take a test. We need to put the arts and music, the creative educational programs that inspire and make well-rounded students that are going to survive in today's economy. School safety is a huge issue for teachers, and we have to provide them with a safe classroom. We need to pay them what their worth is. That profession, they're just way underpaid, and that should be a legislative priority for all of us, as whether we're citizens, members of the legislature, business, chambers, we should all be pushing that this has to be the priority. We cannot have these teachers leaving the profession and how they're doing in statistics that they're leaving. Thank you.
Thank you. I realize this is a two-part question, so if anybody needs me to repeat, I'm happy to do it, but Alex, we'll get it to you next.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I absolutely agree. I think that teacher pay is a real issue here. Every time I knock on the door of a teacher, they keep asking, why do I want to be in the state legislature? Why would I like to be a state legislator? And I said, I don't know how you are a teacher. It's one of the hardest jobs in the state and this community. You're literally raising people's children and educating them to a test, which has been proven to be ineffective and cause extra work. Studies have shown, when charter schools came into this community in El Paso, that public education actually pays more and has a better retirement system. So we really have to say, why are people leaving to go to other educational options if this is a better place for them? And it also shows just how poorly we treat our teachers across the community at any educational organization they are at. And so as well as increasing teacher pay, we also need to look at teacher to student ratio, right? So the same thing with the nurses and our other labor unions. When you have one person teaching 40 to 50 classroom sizes, not here in El Paso, but across the state, we really need to be giving them the support that they need, paying them adequately, and as I said before, creating resources for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Homer, we'll head to you.
Okay, well, actually, the two things that I can think of right now is the compensation for the teachers. You know, they are good communicators, and a lot of the resources for them is that they're awfully tasked with a lot of administrative things that sometimes their compensation is not enough. And all of a sudden, outside compensation, they will look more attractive to them. So I think that the fact that we need to pay them more, especially in that little bill where we need $2,000, $4,000 more for those teachers should be in there because they need to be compensated well. It is a noble position that they need to be looked at, and it should not be underrated. The other thing that I think is important to keep on is to address the conditions of the schools and so forth. Their oversized classes is a burnout factor. Having to go with not appropriate resources for the classrooms is also a burnout factor. So we need to address the burnout factors that make our teachers leave the profession, and that is not enough support, for example, for additional professional support for them, for opportunities to grow, the availability of resources in the schools. So I think that those two things need to be addressed so that we can keep our teachers and they will burn out after 4 or 5 years in the profession.
Thank you, sir. All right, Vince?
There's what's called, the teacher pay penalty, where teachers are basically penalized for going into the teaching profession. Teachers on average earn 22% less than other college graduates in other professions. So what incentive is there for a young person in college to go into the teaching profession when they aren't compensated nearly to the amount they are in other areas? That's why teacher pay is so critical. But I'll tell you that I spoke to a lot of teachers, and I spoke to a lot of former teachers out of Bel Air, and I was really appreciative that they took the time to chat. And I will tell you something that I found fascinating. Not a single teacher said that pay was the #1 issue of their dissatisfaction. It's not to say that it's not a top concern, because it certainly is. Nearly every teacher I spoke to said they feel undervalued. They don't feel appreciated in their profession. And it manifests itself in a variety of ways. One, it comes down to training. When you're a student teacher, your final requirement, you have to go into, you have to take a teacher residency when you're in the class. It's unpaid. So if you're a college student that's already paying your way through college, they didn't have to do an unpaid internship to complete your teaching. I mean, how is that showing that you're actually valued and wanted in this profession? Then when they enroll in schools and start teaching in schools, there is no mentorship opportunities for them. There should be a 3-year teacher mentorship program to help teachers ease into the profession. And finally, when it comes to budget cuts, it's always their professional development that's cut. So these are some of the issues that we need to address when we talk about appreciating teachers and helping them to develop our skills as they educate our children.
Thank you very much. All right, it's like you all almost teed up my next question for me. So for a little bit of additional background, there's been a lot of discussion about the overemphasis on tests in recent years. Our current A through F accountability system is entirely based on STAR to rate our schools at the elementary and middle school levels. In February, the Travis County District Court will decide whether or not to allow TEA to move forward on new college career military readiness rules that will drastically impact the overall ratings of campuses and school districts. So Alex, we'll start with you on this question. Should our accountability system be dependent on the STAR or STAAR or any standardized test? What factors of school quality would you like to see included when rating our public schools? Vince, you're still on.
Thank you, Andrea. Yeah, absolutely not. I do not believe that we should be teaching to standardized tests, but also funding to a standardized test. We need to be looking at overall measures of students that are hitting their targets for their age group. We need to be looking at the factors of the quality of schools, of the programs that they have. Teaching to a test becomes a memorization for students. It becomes what teachers do every day. They should be able to be teaching our students to be better prepared for the world, for the workforce. And when we're judging those, and we saw it happen in Houston. These STAR tests, these standardized tests were used against an entire school district to take over by the state. It's not right. We should be funding impacts to our students to help them succeed in life, not be a yearly budget measure.
Thank you very much. Homer, we'll move to you.
Okay, thank you. If we depend on a STAR system or test for rating our schools, we're actually limiting ourselves. It does not take into account a lot of other factors. As a matter of fact, right now, I'm hearing that the standard rate that we're using today is a moving target and it's not well defined, so it's really not a good system to go with. I favor more of a comprehensive system, rating system that's going to take into account multiple indicators that will provide for a better, more accurate system to make sure that all these things are measured. And so in that respect, I would think that if we could add, for example, the parents' involvement with our schools, that's important. The safety of our schools, that's important. The condition of our schools, do they have adequate available technology in our schools? That's important. So all those things should be indicators or factors that should go into evaluating and rating the quality of the schools.
Thank you very much. Vince, we'll head to you. Homer, we need you to, yeah, there you go.
I think that we should eliminate standardized testing from our schools and revert to the federal minimums when it comes to standardized testing. I think we're the only campaign that's going to provide very specific replacements for standardized testing as it currently stands. I think schools should be very specifically measured when it comes to the number of 8th grade students who are enrolled in 8th grade algebra. Studies have shown that more students who complete 8th grade algebra are set for a foundation of success in high school and through college. Second, I think that there should also be a specific performance measure where schools are measured for the number of students enrolled in dual credit courses in early college. This is a huge predictor in terms of setting up kids for college readiness and college completion. Studies have shown that students who at least complete 9 to 12 hours of dual college credit in high school are 80% more likely to complete an associate's degree than other students. Other students are only graduating at a rate of 20%. So when it comes to specific metrics of how can we measure schools, I think we can eliminate the federal testing, the state testing, go to the federal minimums, and use other metrics like 8th grade algebra, the number of students there, the number of teachers who are certified to teach 8th grade algebra, the number of teachers who are also certified to teach dual credit. These are all specific performance metrics that will improve outcomes here in Region 19 and lead to more kids going into college.
Thank you, Vince. Norma?
The answer is no. We need to replace the STAR standard. There has to be some accountability in the public education system because it is funded by the tax dollars. Taxpayers can demand accountability, and they should in the public education system. And I would work with legislators, teachers unions, school allies, PTA, parent groups, and all stakeholders to come up with an accountability system that takes into consideration student, cultural, and socioeconomic background, because there are variable challenges for people students in those age groups, home issues, and teachers must and should be at the forefront of this debate, and they should be included in a solution-driven strategy. No more of this bickering. We need to all come to the table for our students in our Texas public schools.
Thank you, Norma. You want to grab your mic? There you go. All right. Okay, so we're going to head into our last education-related question, and this one is going to go to you first, Homer, and we're going to switch a little bit into pre-K, so a little bit more specific. So during the 85th legislative session in 2019, Texas made great strides to increase funding for pre-kindergarten instruction, expanding the amount of money and qualifying enrolled for full-day pre-kindergarten, yet Texas still does not have a universal pre-K system in place. So the question is, would you support increasing funding and opening up admittance for all students to participate in full-day pre-kindergarten? If yes or no, why?
Well, the definite answer is yes, I would support having a full day pre-kindergarten for all children, especially the fact that because I'm representing District 77, and I want to make sure that every child has an opportunity to have an equal education opportunity. And by doing this, you're actually giving each child, no matter what their socioeconomic background is, the ability to have a good education. Studies have shown that by having early child education, it has a tremendous impact on the cognitive and social development of the child. And by providing or ensuring that every child has access to full day pre-kindergarten, you're actually bridging the educational gap between a disadvantaged child and a more privileged peers. So definitely, I would certainly support having that. And the other thing would be is that it would also help the working parent that has to work full day, and knowing that the child is in school full time, it would also lessen the burden of having to worry about child care for the child.
Thank you, Homer. Vince?
Yes, universal pre-K is vitally important, especially for communities like El Paso. Right now, we have about 7,000 students in Region 19 that are enrolled in pre-K, but the state does not fully fund pre-K. It only funds it at half day. So whenever a school district like EPIC, and President Garibaldi is here, whenever they fund pre-K, they're essentially subsidizing a good portion of the cost. So no matter how you look at it, there's no incentive for the districts to provide the service. The more students that are enrolled in pre-K, the more money that has to be diverted from other programs throughout the school district. So absolutely, the state should fully fund pre-K. What that would do is that would free up $8 million that our districts are currently subsidizing here in Region 19. But also very importantly, and something that needs to be, I wish we had more time, is that there are serious pipeline issues here in El Paso. At any given time, there's about 500 students a year studying and teaching at UTEP. Okay, 500 students a year. Only 20% of them are passing the mandated state exam to become teachers. So that means that our community is only producing 100 teachers a year. Something that's even more concerning is that only 1% of those students who are enrolled are studying early college education. So that's only 5 students or so who are studying early college education. If only 20% of them are passing the test, we're only producing 1 to 2 early college teachers a year here in El Paso. It's a serious concern. If we're going to have universal pre-K, we have to have serious discussions about how we're going to address the pipeline issues here in El Paso.
Thank you, Vince. Microphone. Thank you. Norma, go ahead.
Find someone else. Yes, I would support increasing funding and opening up admittance for all students to participate in full-day pre-K. We have a rainy day fund with over $20 billion that we can utilize for pre-K, and it's a good thing because we need to help the working families, single parents, grandparents that are parenting because their kids can't handle it. It's an opportunity for us to help bootstrap and get these students in the pre-K program. So I do support that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Alex?
Yeah, I think we all have the same answer here. I think that universal pre-K is extremely important. I think something that hasn't been mentioned is that families across the state are on waiting lists for pre-K programs. Years ahead, as soon as their children are born, her friends in Houston, as soon as their child is born, they put them on a waiting list for a half-day pre-K program. It is extremely beneficial to working families and to students to be able to expand a full day of universal pre-K. Cognitive abilities, social abilities, it really shows, studies have shown that there's an increase in educational success for children that are in full day pre-K. And so like my colleagues up here, I absolutely do support funding for that.
Thank you so much. All right, we are going to adjust focus a little bit and head over to workforce and economic development issues. And Vince, this first question is going to be for you. The Chamber has made it clear that inclusive decision-making is vital for economic prosperity. How will you, if elected, ensure that the perspectives and data from the business community are not just considered, but are given the opportunity to provide input prior to legislative decisions that impact El Paso's economy?
Again, I had the privilege of serving the people in an elected capacity for 8 years as county commissioner. My approach, when it comes to governing, my first and foremost priority is to the people of House District 77. Their interests and their needs, will always come first, and I think it's important that we give all the people that we represent, a strong voice in Austin. With that said, obviously, the business community are also constituents and important stakeholders. And I think that during my time as commissioner, I was able to build trust, not only with residents, but with other stakeholders. We always have an open door policy. I'll always meet with anybody, even if we're on different sides of an issue. People know that they can come speak to me. And they're always going to get, the truth. They're going to get a straight shot from me. Again, we might disagree, but I think that that's the approach that you need to have when it comes to government. if we see like what's happening in the state of Texas, we're seeing that politics are highly polarized. And when it comes to immigration, when it comes to education, what I fear is happening is you're getting a lot of elected people in Austin who aren't serious about solving these problems. They're more concerned with political theater. And that's something that we really need to combat by being pragmatic. We need to be serious problem solvers. And we need to have that attitude when we go to Austin. And so certainly when it comes to engaging the business community and other stakeholders, I'm gonna have that process where I communicate to everybody as we legislate in Austin.
Thank you so much. Norma? Microphone.
I have worked on economic development issues with the Chamber of Commerce, with the business community and trade associations. Been there and done that. Skills Development Fund, I utilized a unique formula in legislation that I passed, which utilized the UI Fund, which is the unemployment fund, and we took 1/10% of that fund to increase millions of dollars for the Skills Development Fund. And that's why seniority matters here in this race, because I've been in those meetings and in those discussions, and it takes someone with the legislative experience and the capacity to integrate these programs for the community of El Paso. It is extremely important. This economic prosperity is the #1 issue. With public education, we also have to have a trained workforce. And economic prosperity will be a legislative priority always for me, especially in El Paso, for opportunities for our community and our students and our business community.
Thank you, Norma. I feel like you guys all just need to think of it as like a mic drop. You can just be like, I'm done, right?
Thank you, Andrea. In my time on city council, I never wrote a piece of policy without community input. We were talking about Narcan, we were talking about protecting our queer communities, we were talking about protecting our healthcare options. There were 5 to 10 people in the room reviewing the policy, going over the policy, making sure that it impacted the people, that it affected the people it was going to impact correctly, and that there was an actual benefit to the policy. Some of you may not believe this, but I have a great relationship with the Chamber of Commerce, the El Paso Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, SBDC. We meet with them all monthly. It is something that I wouldn't be able to do this job without their input, without their data, and without those partnerships. One of, I think, the most fruitful things I ever did as a city council is going with the El Paso Chamber around my district and meeting with small business owners and understanding what the impacts of COVID were to them and what they needed moving forward. And I think we passed some really great policies out of the city of El Paso to address that moving forward. Some of those are still to be implemented. But to answer the question, I wouldn't be able to do this without the data from the professionals, and it would be an honor to be able to work with all of our Chamber of Commerces, or both of our Chamber of Commerces.
Thank you. Homer?
Okay, well, remember that my background is a business background, and I've been taught that you've got to understand the needs of the people that you're working with. So the first thing I will do is work with the chambers to understand exactly what the needs are and why we need to prioritize that. Once we have an understanding of why the importance of prioritizing those perspectives are, then I need to partner or at least have an impact assessment to see how that's going to be how that is going to impact our community, not just El Paso, but communities around the state. Once we understand that, then we can partner with those that are going to have a positive impact and kind of partner with them so that we can have a strong voice based on the fact that we have a mutual goal, and then take that to the floor so that we can have grants or whatever we need to do to prioritize those needs. So again, my field is to understand where we are, and then make sure that we sell the reason why it is a priority to put those things in front of the legislators.
Thank you, Norma. All right, Norma, we are going to send this next question to you. Could you outline the state legislative measures you plan to introduce to enhance workforce development and to keep or draw talent to the border region, thereby both bolstering our local economy?
Great, thank you. enhancing workforce development has always been a big issue for me. Again, I return as a senior member with seniority. This means I'll be in the top 30 out of 150 members, which allows me to utilize my seniority for speaker committees and substantive committees. And as a senior member, and as a member who is known for crossing the aisle, I'll use my communication skills to build relationships with the party in power. You have to deal with the cards that are dealt you, and as I've already stated before, it's a Republican-controlled legislative body, and so we have to utilize experience to work on enhancing workforce development programs. And I again, increased the skills development fund by legislation, working with the Chamber of Commerce. There's many chambers of commerce, there's the Korean Chamber of Commerce. So yes, you've got to integrate all the stakeholders on these issues for workforce development.
Thank you, Norma. And just for the candidates, I did skip question number 6 in case that's what you're trying to figure out. We're running a little short on time, so do you need me to repeat that now that I'm talking? Okay, all right, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to make sure. I didn't want to sound like a broken record here, but I think that enhancing our educational system is extremely important, right? If you do not have a strong pre-K to 12 system, you do not have students that go on to higher education. Studies also show that young people, older people in general, get a graduate degree, they stay where they graduate from, and they work there. We're making sure that we have a good pre-K to 12 pipeline is extremely important, but also working with our higher ed organizations, working with UTEP, working with EPCC for workforce training. Great program out at the airport with UTEP, and I think that continuing those kind of programs is extremely important. Our new law school, which people have been pushing for, really investing in our primary school education, but expanding our programs on higher ed is the only way that we are going to have a good school to work pipeline of workforce.
Thank you. Homer?
Would you mind repeating the question?
Oh, absolutely. Could you outline the state legislative measures you plan to introduce to enhance workforce development and to keep or draw talent to the border region, thereby bolstering our local economy?
Thank you. I believe that we need to invest both in the education and the workforce development. And by that I mean that we need to continue to fund our educational institutions such as our K-12, vocational training, community colleges, and our universities, so that we can start looking at the programs that they got, so that they can train and give us a good, solid workforce that will meet the needs of the future jobs that we have. That are coming up, so in that way we can actually provide a very skilled, intelligent workforce. And then we have to also invest in the infrastructure for businesses. Businesses need to be attracted to our community by having resources that they can use. So I would invest on the infrastructure development to attract businesses and hopefully use the workforce that we have here that we're creating in El Paso, so that now we can have a mutual workforce and a business so that they can stay here in El Paso.
Thank you. All right, Vince?
I wish we had more time to discuss some education issues because it's so important when we talk about workforce. But look, here in El Paso, when you look at the cohort of 8th graders, only 18% of 8th graders go on to complete a college degree within 10 years. 18%. Our community is never going to prosper if we don't improve those stats. That's why when we talk about things like dual credit, it is so vitally important, not only to improve college readiness here in our community, but to improve the college completion rates here in El Paso, which has plagued our economic growth for decades. What's happening in Socorro ISD is one of the best stories in education. This May, Socorro ISD is going to graduate more than 600 students who are going to graduate with at least 30 college credit hours. It's phenomenal. It's not happening anywhere else in Texas, not happening anywhere else in the nation. It's something that we need to replicate elsewhere in our community. But what does that mean? More students are going to go to college. More students are going to then have the opportunity to use their Pell Grants, not on their undergraduate degree, but for graduate degrees. So this education component is so vitally important, and I hope we can talk about it more. But of course, when it comes to workforce development, there's other things. As mentioned, the law school is so vitally important. We're the largest community in the nation that doesn't have law school. And also, when it comes to other things, the governor has a large economic development fund that mainly goes to Austin, Houston, Dallas, and San Antonio. There needs to be legislation to equalize that so we can develop emerging industries here in El Paso.
Thank you, Vince. Okay, we've got 2 questions left. I have one from Progress 321, and then we have one from our El Paso Mobility Coalition regarding transportation. So Alex, you're gonna get this next one from Progress 321. In terms of state policies and incentives, what are your top 3 strategies for fostering new business growth or enticing existing businesses to expand or relocate their headquarters to our area?
I apologize. 3 policies that I think are extremely important for workforce or for economic development. Again, workforce development. I had mentioned earlier advanced manufacturing partnership with Utah, which has been extremely successful, is going to be extremely successful, but also working with our labor unions, working with our vocational schools, really pushing out labor incentives for economic development, also child care credits. We talked about pre-K, but we didn't talk about pre-K, right? Giving vouchers, economic development vouchers to organizations that are going to provide child care for the laborers will be extremely important, but also the story of El Paso. The truth is that El Paso has kind of a negative image when you go to Austin. You're talking about economic development, you're talking about bringing in businesses. Unfortunately, the false rhetoric on immigration that's coming out of Austin has impacted El Paso when we talk about bringing businesses here. People come to the city all the time and say, well, I wasn't going to come here because I thought it was too dangerous. I didn't want to move my family down here and ask my workers to come down here. We know that's not true. We know this is the safest city in Texas. We need to be pushing that story out. We need to be pushing for more labor, economic development, and workforce programs. And we need to be helping with child care to retain and attract people to come work in El Paso. Thank you.
Thank you. Homer?
Okay, the 3 things that I would go for is, number 1, it would be financial incentives. Financial incentives are a strong attraction for businesses. So by that I mean that I would offer tax rates. I would offer tax incentives, maybe low interest loans, so that we can lessen the burden of the financial burden of our businesses, so that they can come over here and have a more attractive atmosphere in El Paso. So, of course, I would keep in mind that we have to align those long-term goals when we're making sure that what we're offering is aligned with the long-term goals and the investment that we're putting in front. The second thing I would do is, again, I would also invest in the infrastructure development. We gotta have some resources for the businesses so they can survive. So that would be the second thing, and then of course the third thing that I would also invest in the collaboration and the partnership between our education institutions, our business community, and our local government, so that we can continue to provide some good incentives and resources for businesses, and so that we can have that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Vince?
I think there's tremendous potential, like as I mentioned previously, with emerging industries. There's Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos, to our east, where there's a lot of activity happening with space tourism. There's Virgin Galactic to our west. And there's been a lot of activity here when it comes to aerospace. So anything that we can do to diversify El Paso's economy, bring in high-paying jobs is very critical, and I think the emerging aerospace industry is something that has a lot of potential. 2, we've got to recognize we're a border community. As a lifelong resident of El Paso, we used to be much more interconnected with Juarez. There was the violence in 2007, and then there were passport requirements, and we don't interact with our sister city as much as we used to. And so when I hear a lot of the debates that are happening today, there's debates to take out truck traffic from our ports of entry. I mean, what are we going to do at our ports if there's not going to be any trade going back and forth? I fear that we're becoming increasingly disconnected with our sister city, and I think that if we're going to truly say that being a border community is one of our greatest strengths, then let's embrace that. Let's create a vision with our sister city of Juarez, to develop 21st century jobs with 21st century manufacturing. There's so many things when it comes to healthcare, technology, that we can be harnessing with our shared population, but I don't think we explore that full potential. So as a legislator, that's something that I hope that we can bring attention to emerging industries and really being more competitive as a border community here in the United States.
Thank you very much. All right, Norma?
Thank you. I believe that the El Paso business community must be engaged in the public education system beyond vouchers, first of all. It cannot be the sole focus. The education system that we have needs to provide a trained workforce in every industry, be it engineering, construction, plumbing, nursing, coding, teaching, the trades. And opportunity, we have opportunity with bioengineering. We have a tremendous engineering department at UTEP, and medical engineering, aerospace engineering. We've really ramped that up, and UTEP, the business sector, is already involved in that, and it's a tremendous opportunity for El Paso. As we talked about higher education and the medical school, I already passed the study bill for higher education, which will determine whether a law school is needed along the Texas border. I can revisit that because that legislation has already passed to bring a law school. Been there, done that.
Thank you so much. All right, this is the last question. So Homer, this is going to be to you. This is from our El Paso Chamber Mobility Coalition. So the MCO, which that is short for, is something that the Chamber created back in 2019. It's made up of local government entities as well as some of our private sector individuals, and they focus a lot on transportation. So this question is going to be transportation related. Given the establishment of MCO by the El Paso Chamber in 2019 to promote transportation initiatives, and considering the competitive nature of securing transportation funding in Texas, how do you plan to advocate at the state level for El Paso to receive its fair share for key projects like I-10 Segment 2 and the Borderland Expressway?
Okay, well, I will do what I do best, and that's to convince people that we have a great trade here in El Paso that's going to be very important for the state of Texas. What I'm saying is that El Paso is a major hub for international trade, and it's also one of the most busiest land ports in the United States because it facilitates passing of goods and services to between two countries. And that brings a lot of revenue and jobs to the economy of the state. So I would go and find the delegation, our delegates, and supporters from the state, telling them that they need to fund our transportation initiatives, because in order for our economy to survive and to thrive, you need a strong transportation network. That involves whether it be land transportation or railroad transportation. Our goods and services need to have a good transportation for our economy to survive. And so by them funding these initiatives for transportation, they're actually funding or helping not only the economy for El Paso, but for the economy of Texas.
Thank you, Homer. All right, Vince.
Sure. I had the privilege of serving as the chairman of the Transportation Policy Board here in El Paso for the El Paso Metropolitan Planning Organization, which oversees all the federal funding for the El Paso region. Mayor Walter Miller and I were there in the background, have a lot of stories we can tell everything. Mayor Sanchez too. We've been through a lot of issues when it came to transportation funding. So for example, the state of Texas has a lot of discretionary funding for transportation projects, but El Paso is time and time again overlooked, and this funding often goes to Austin, Dallas, Houston, because the state of Texas perceives that as a better investment. Again, this often comes from the result that we don't have a unified vision when it comes to transportation. Where do we want El Paso to be in the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years? We need to articulate that very clearly when we go and talk about El Paso's story in Austin. Also important transportation projects. When we look at our ports of entry, the Congresswoman is doing a lot to modernize the ports of entry, as she should. That has been a long time fight. Our ports of entry need to be modernized if we're going to be economically competitive in the state of Texas. But I think something that we need to do is that when we're in Austin, We need to just have a lot of data, a lot of facts, and a lot of great advocacy when we make the case demonstrating that just because El Paso is geographically isolated from Austin, Houston, Dallas, we are just as deserving, we are just as much a part of Texas as anywhere else. And that's the fight that we've got to take to Austin when we're making this case.
Thank you, sir. Microphone. Norma?
Transportation and mobility is one of my priorities. We're the second largest land port in the state of Texas behind Laredo. And when border crossings, bridges are at a standstill still for whatever reason, it impacts not just the local economy, but it impacts the economy of the state and our national economies. We're on a major transportation artery of international trade. We import from Mexico more than any other country. We are literally the front door of international trade with $462 billion of goods were imported from Mexico in 2023 into the U.S. This means more warehouses, more trucking industry. It's jobs, 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 and that's what we want here. We cannot allow the bottlenecks at the ports of entry. I support the moving of the transportation of 18-wheelers away from the inner city and into the outer quarters. And again, seniority and legislative experience matters. I passed House Bill 1107 in 2005, and that gave TxDOT the authority to adjust the local transportation match, which helped El Paso. That was brought to me by the Chamber of Commerce, and we passed it. So let's put our heads together, realizing that the mobility coalition is extremely important for our economy locally. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Mic drop. There you go.
Thank you for the question. We are seeing immense growth in this community, which means a need for infrastructure and funding. But we can't do this in silos. TxDOTs, other TxDOT regions in the state, other mobility coalitions, other MPOs have said to my face, El Paso shoots himself in the foot every time. They never go to the community before, and when we bring out a project, people get mad. We need to start bringing people to the table when we have conversations about what's right for this community. And I want to really commend the MPO and the Paso Del Foundation, who I know did a lot of work to bring people into those conversations. It is not to their fault that TxDOT rolls out plans before talking to people, but we will never continue to do anything but end fight if we don't sit at the table together. Again, something that I've always done and something that I will always plan to do. I think that the Borderland Expressway is an extremely important project to be getting as many trucks off of I-10 as possible. When we're talking about the expansion of I-10, we need to not be removing homes or housing authority facilities. We also need to be looking at safety, and the Borderland Expressway is a really important safety factor. I've been really honored to sit in the room with Congresswoman Escobar, as well as the government in Mexico and Juarez, who have asked for trucks to be taken off of Boda. And we're trying to work out a plan that is successful for everyone. We need to also be working with New Mexico and focusing on a south to north trade route. We do not have a direct route from Mexico to the northern region of this country. Without that, we are not as successful as we can be in commerce. And so I think really important is, I'm sorry, that was my time, thank you.
All right, well, collective mic drop. I want to thank all of you, not only for making my job easy this evening, but for coming here so incredibly prepared, really and truly, and obviously the civility along with everything just is icing on the cake. So at this point, I'm going to turn things over to the Chamber's board chair, Liz O'Hara.
Thank you. I'd like to first go ahead and recognize, although we thanked you all, and I appreciate the fact that you were here largely off of the hard work of the staff of the El Paso Chamber. So I'd like to go ahead and take a moment to give them a round of applause. I'd also like to go ahead and thank Raise Your Hand Texas and Progress 321 for all of their work in putting tonight's event together. Now, over the past few months, we have been able to hold a number of forums, not just this one, and you all may have seen an uptick in that advocacy because we have held a forum for the El Paso City Council District 2 seat, the district attorney race, which we had a candidate forum for last month, and then of course today, HD 77. And there are a lot of important seats that are up for election this year. And so we want to ensure that you are educated, informed, you go out to vote. As you all know, we have the terrible reputation of having a very low voter turnout, and we would really like to be able to turn that around. And so forums like this are really an opportunity for us to kind of get ahead of that problem. With that in mind, I want to go ahead and remind you that Election Day is on March the 5th. Early voting is going to start on February the 20th, and it runs through March the 1st. And before I get to kind of last minute notes, I do want to go ahead and say we have a number of events, and again, thank you Progress 321 and Maya Sanchez for being out here tonight. We want to remind you that we do have on March 27th, and I'm looking at my notes here so I can say it right, the Changemakers Borderland Women in Technology event. We would like to have you all out there. If you know people who would benefit from that event, I would ask you to go to the Progress 321 website and check that out. We also have a number of presents out there, posts and stuff out on social media, so please check that out. That's going to be happening at the El Paso Country Club, and you can go to progress321.org for more information. And then next, in 2 weeks, February 29th, we have a mixer out at Dead Beach. This is an opportunity for you to get out there and network. If you would like to promote your business, you want to find out more about who the members are of the El Paso Chamber, you would like to join the El Paso Chamber, I would invite you to come out to Dead Beach and join us there as well. Lastly, these forums would not be possible without the support of our members. If you are interested in learning more about how you can become a member, please go see VNA. VNA raises her hand right there as I say her name. She's out there at our welcome table, and she can help you with the packet pickup forum, or information. So if there's anything else, Andrea and I are going to stick around. Of course, members of the El Paso Chamber staff are going to stick around. We'd be happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you all very much for coming out here tonight.